it is incumbent upon all of us as Americans, regardless of race, region, faith, that we recognize this is an American problem and not just a black problem or a brown problem or a Native American problem. This is an American problem. When anybody in this country is not being treated equally under the law, that's a problem. And it's my job as president to help solve it.
As a new Congress prepares to settle in and get to work, our elected officials are facing a time of crisis in so many arenas and will need to truly lead the way in finding the answers Americans are demanding. Healthcare, immigration, terrorism, and now the racial tension gripping this nation has taken precedence. Let's welcome to MidPoint the junior United States Senator from Wyoming, member of the Committee on Foreign Relations. John Barrasso joins us today. Senator, thank you so much for being here.
Ed, thank you for having me.
Senator, we are now at the beginning of what needs to be a very serious discussion on race, police relations, and much more in this country. Americans are looking not only to the president, but to their elected leaders, such as yourself and so many others, for leadership. Where does it need to start, in your opinion, to put this country back on a track where people trust their cops?
Well, you know, it is interesting as we look at this and what's been happening just the last couple of days, and specifically in New York. There are obviously lots of concerns out there. It continues the dialogue that we need to have, need to continue, and I think that we need to continue working toward agreements where community members talk to one another, know each other, where the police know the folks where they live and the beats in which they serve, and continue the discussion. But I think we need to get to a point where ultimately there is a return to trust in this country.
How do our lawmakers, and such as yourself, help get us to that point? Because what you're saying is true. Unfortunately, we've heard so much of it before, the fact that we need to have dialogue, we need to have trust, we need to get people talking. This has been around for a while, and we're still not there. Something is stopping us from getting to that point, and I'm curious from your perspective now what that is and how we can overcome that.
I think more dialogue, more opportunities to talk with one another in public, in private, in communities, in community centers, through our churches, through our charities. All of those things, all of those entities need to work together to work toward a betterment of all of us in society.
Do we need to, in your opinion, get into the police departments across America, revamp them, rework them, do something there? Because I'll tell you that a lot of the people that I speak with, I have a lot of friends in law enforcement, and they're now very concerned that they will not be able to do their job, that there will be an overreach or an overreaction here to this, and stop the honest cops, honest law enforcement, even Homeland Security from being able to do their job.
Well, I think that concern is legitimately out there. I heard it at home in Wyoming this past weekend, and we obviously are a very law-abiding and law and order state in the Rocky Mountain West. So clearly, we want to get to the point where our police officers are trusted, respected, looked up to, held as a position of prestige. And it's just a concern when situations arise that call that into question, and then on top of that, the amount of damage that is done in violence and destruction by those who respond in ways that hurt innocent people in return.
Speaking of that, with about a minute or so that we have left, then we'll break, come back and talk about some other issues as well. But when we're talking about the citizens themselves, does there need to be a greater understanding of the responsibility of the citizens to follow the law, to not, I'm going to make this very clear, get in the face of officers? Because, and I'm not talking about the individuals here in these cases, but certainly there is that opinion now. There's that sense in America that they can go up against the cops, up against them, and they can basically get in their face. And that seems to be a big problem, whether you're white, black, green, blue, whatever.
Yeah, that level of behavior doesn't help anybody. It inflames the situation, but it's why I say the conversation needs to continue through our churches, through our communities, through our charities, people working together and talking through these things, because, as you know, this happens very quickly, and within a matter of seconds, a situation can turn deadly.
Exactly. Well, Senator, please stand by for just one moment. We'll take a break here. Other side of the break, Senator John Barrasso returns. We're going to dig into the news of al-Qaeda now working the ISIS side of the terrorist street. Plus, we also talked a little bit about Obamacare. We talked about immigration. Also, there's the potential for a looming lawsuit over the president's executive action on immigration. And at 51 minutes after the hour, in Telling It Like It Is, similarities and stark differences in 3 recent police shootings. This begins part of the conversation. It's a conversation we intend to continue right here on MidPoint, where we question everything. Welcome back to MidPoint, and also welcome back Senator from Wyoming, an orthopedic physician, member of the Committee on Foreign Relations. John Barrasso joins us. Senator, let's get to what's happening overseas. Speaking of foreign relations, an al-Qaeda affiliate is now threatening to kill an American hostage, much like we have seen from ISIS in the videos. Does this not say to us that this is something that there will be a lot of copycats of? They are going to use Americans, and if Americans are going overseas in any sense of the imagination, any stretch, they need to be aware that they are targets no matter when and where they are.
Well, I think you're absolutely right, Ed. There is this continued threat. You know, if there's anything that's focused the American mind, I believe it's been seeing those videos of the beheadings that have occurred, 2 hostages by ISIS, and now what you're reporting with al-Qaeda. I was in the Persian Gulf on Thanksgiving Day visiting some of our troops from Wyoming and our National Guard there and serving them Thanksgiving dinner. But the height of concern has risen significantly. So I think that it's a concern to anybody traveling overseas, but it's also a concern to those of us at home. What we saw with ISIS is they said they see you in New York. They want their flag flying in Washington, D.C., and that's why it's so important for us to be engaged. And we're actually going to be holding hearings on Monday on an authorization of the use of military force in the Foreign Relations Committee. As you mentioned, I'm a member. I was just in a meeting regarding that right before coming to talk with you, and we're going to move with a vote on an authorization of the use of military force next week.
Speaking to that, then, at what level would you personally like to see the military force lengthened or expanded, if you will, in the Middle East against people like ISIS and al-Qaeda?
Well, the president has said he wants to degrade and then destroy ISIS. You know ISIS. It stands for Iraq and Syria, but I think I'm concerned also about Libya, other locations, so in northern Africa. So this is an expanding group that is really focused, I believe, on targeting those of us in the United States as well as in Europe.
Do you have a concern personally that we are seeing perhaps the beginning of an al-Qaeda-ISIS affiliation here, getting together and creating an even stronger terrorism force?
Well, that's obviously the worry. Remember, the president earlier this year said that these guys were like a JV team. He was absolutely wrong on this. We now are at a point where we're moving to go to a 4th Secretary of Defense because the president continues to seem to want to micromanage things from the White House and underestimates the threat. I think the president was wrong when he got all troops out of Iraq. We should have allowed, he should have listened to the military advice of the military leaders who recommended a residual force of about 15,000 there. If the president pulls everyone out of Afghanistan, we're going to just see a repeat of the movie that we saw in Iraq in Afghanistan. So I think that the president needs to focus specifically on the huge level of this threat, not just with ISIS, but as you described, the possibility of ISIS working with al-Qaeda.
Senator, let me get your opinion then on the 17 states that are now going to sue the president on his immigration executive order. Good idea, and not only that, do you think that they can really succeed? Because there's many people who say this is a waste of time.
Well, the president is clearly continuing to go around the will of the American people. We saw an election just earlier, a month ago, that where the people said we want to change the direction of the country, and the president came out the next day, essentially ignoring the results and saying he was listening to the 2/3 of the Americans who weren't voting. You know, is he? I don't understand who he's listening to. Is this leadership through telepathy? It is strange to think that the president is not listening to the voters of this country who have rejected his policies, and so he comes out with this executive amnesty, heading in the direction that is not, I believe, legal, and is certainly not the right thing to do for our country. I think he's actually made it worse in terms of immigration reform. We need to do immigration modernization in this country, border security, enforcement, things like merit-based and skills-based visas. There's a lot of things we need to do, and I think the president's made it a lot harder to accomplish those things by, in the face of an overwhelming defeat, he goes on and says, I don't care what the voters say, I'm going to do what I want.
I've only got about 10 seconds left. Do you feel that if the president's executive order goes through, which it will, his orders will take effect here, that it will take decades to recover from this immigration order?
Any president can eliminate any of this executive order, this executive amnesty, and I'm going to work for a Republican president in 2016.
And there we go. That'll be the answer for now. Senator John Barrasso, we thank you so much. If we don't get a chance to talk again or before that, please, a very happy holiday and a Merry Christmas to you and your family.
Thanks, Ed. You too.
Take care. We're back with the resetting of a Cold War between Russia and the United States, with the last leader of the Soviet Union dropping an accusation hammer on America. And at 34 minutes after the hour, a former New York City cop takes his turn on where law enforcement needs to go now in light of Ferguson and Eric Garner. That and so much more coming up right here on MidPoint, where we question everything.